All righty, welcome back for another episode of Two Plain Sports. Today is Friday, September 2nd, day before game day of Oklahoma football. A long anticipated start to this 2022-2023 season. It's finally here. We're going to be talking a little bit about David Hicks. I know we just talked about him on Wednesday's show, but since our show and since we recorded it, three crystal balls came in favor of Oklahoma. Kind of came all Wednesday morning, as the show was airing. So we're going to talk about those crystal balls. We're also going to be talking about Wanya Morris and the rumor that he's suspended for the first two games of the season and the implications there. We're going to go through and pick our Heisman winners and maybe a Heisman dark horse. And we're going to pick four games as far as betting goes and who we like, and try to start keeping tallies, on who has the best betting record throughout the whole season. Now that we're going into week one, we'll start counting. We're going to pick four games, each one of us, what we like, what's our favorite, and we'll start recapping them on Monday's show and kind of keep a live count all season long. But before we get into it, I just want to say we appreciate it. We hit that 5,000 subscriber mark. We have exceeded it. We asked you guys did it. So now we're just cruising along, and the quest for 5,100 is underway. We got where we wanted to be before football season, but I know you guys can help us out. So hit the subscribe button, like the video, turn the notification bell. If you're listening to Apple or Spotify, be sure to follow the channel and leave us a review there. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Everything's linked in the description below. And finally, before we get going, Saturday morning, 9 a.m. Central, we will be going live. Brandon will actually be going to the game, so he will not be joining us, from my understanding, unless he FaceTimes in.
I might hop in from the phone for a little bit.
All right, so Brandon might be live from Norman or live on the car ride down, and then Jose and I will be doing a show Saturday morning talking general college football, Sooner football, for 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on how long and how many of you guys show up. And be sure to bring your questions for that. All right, so let's get going into it. So David Hicks. I don't think anyone that's watching this show has never heard of David Hicks before. 2023 5-star, number one defensive lineman in the class. We talked about him last time that he set up his official visit for Bedlam to visit the Sooners. And at the time of we recorded it, there were no crystal balls in favor of Oklahoma, but the momentum looked very positive. And then Wednesday morning, Steve Wiltfong, Brandon Drummond, Parker Thune all entered in crystal balls in favor of Oklahoma. I think like a 6 confidence, which is that's relatively strong in my opinion. And if they all three came in at the same time, there has to be something. And with these crystal balls coming in, just from my outsider looking in and what we've talked to, Brendan Drum and Thune since they've been on our shows, it seems like that this commitment date could be getting pushed up. It seems like Hicks is kind of getting over the recruitment process. I'm sure it's tiring. It's probably annoying at the end of the day. If you know where you want to go, you might as well just decide. It seems like he might be trending towards Oklahoma. Obviously 3 experts say so. Brandon, what do you think?
Come on down. He's an impact day one player for wherever he ends up going. Hopefully it's Oklahoma. It looks that way right now. We're obviously very excited about him. Add to what I think is the best defensive line class in the country. So, we're all on board. Hopefully he commits right after we whoop Oklahoma State's ass in November.
Yeah, it definitely seems like Oklahoma is going to be the landing spot at this point. Definitely a huge change from what it's been over the last year. It seems like almost every school other than Todd Bates in Oklahoma had almost given up on it. Really didn't feel like they had a real shot at David until recently. Todd Bates, again, we've talked about it since day one of him getting hired. There is an effect of him coming to Oklahoma. He has swayed a lot of players to actually at least look at Oklahoma, and a few guys, main one right now being Derek LeBlanc, to come to Oklahoma and play for him as a Sooner. I think David is definitely going to be a day one impact player, especially given the fact that by the time he comes in, we'll definitely be a little bit thinner at that interior defensive position. He'll have to fight for time. I think he'll definitely get time as a true freshman. It'll really get what will be determined during his time assuming that he would be an early enrollee is, can he compete for a starting spot? Because he would still be competing against Kelvin Gilliam, who's been talked about really had a really good camp this year. He just didn't crack, at least for game one, the two deep rotation, but that doesn't mean he can't get in later in the year. I think he's still a very talented player that could potentially start next year. And then there's other guys that are going to be coming in just a little bit more tenured than David. But again, I think David would at least be in the rotation on a regular basis as a true freshman.
That's definitely a selling point for him. I'm sure, as much as we don't care for Texas A&M, when you look at that depth chart is extremely deep at that position group. And also Alabama's up there, and Alabama is also very deep, and they're in a good spot for Keon Keeley. So, I mean, the negative recruiting can be beneficial in Oklahoma in this sense, considering that the defensive line depth might not be to the level of a few other programs. And I made a comment whenever we posted on our Instagram. A Clemson fan actually commented saying, because we put in that this could become the best 2023 defensive lineman class in the country. And they actually pointed out, like, are you sure it's not Clemson? And they actually brought up a really good point. And it's funny because it's Clemson and it's Brent Venables and Todd Bates that left them. They have Peter Woods committed, which I don't know if you guys know who he is. He's the number 3 defensive lineman. They have Vic Burley. He's the number 4 defensive lineman committed to him. And they also have Stephalion Green. He's the 33rd ranked defensive lineman. While they might have they have 2 top 5 players. OU will have 1. Derek LeBlanc, I believe, is like 11. So it's OU and Clemson, it seems like, are the top 2 dogs as far as who's the top defensive lineman. And I think it's interesting just because of it's the same culture. It's the same thing between Dabo and Brent Venables, what they're doing, and it's working.
Clemson sucks. That's all I got to say about that.
Realistically, it's between Clemson and Oklahoma, assuming David Hicks does commit to Oklahoma, and Alabama that are competing for who's going to be the best defensive line group, because like we know, Alabama, they've got Nick Saban, they're going to produce talent, but for this class, they've got Keon Keeley potentially committing to him. I think James Smith, I think, is another defensive lineman. I think that's the young guy's name, who's probably like a top 5 defensive lineman in this year's class. I don't know that their entire class off the top of my head. I just know that those 2 guys are currently uncommitted and leaning towards Alabama at this moment. Oklahoma is going to compete in that, and we're seeing it this year, and it's going to be constant as long as we've got Venables and Todd Bates in that room.
Yeah, most likely every year will be a top 5 defensive lineman haul every year for Oklahoma.
Coach Chavez too. We got to shout out Coach Chavez. He's a big part of that too, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I was just strictly meaning like interior defensive lineman. Yeah. When you factor in the edge players of Vosick, PJ Adebawore, you could argue that Oklahoma has one of the deepest front 7 classes, and potentially adding Celia Kana to that, it becomes even more just talented across the board. So, I mean, top 5 defensive line, top 5 front 7 could be the best of each category. It's pretty strong. So I just thought I threw that in there. I think it's interesting that both Clemson and Oklahoma are same cultures, ranking up near the top or at the top. So we'll move on to a little bit, a different topic, not so great news. It seems like that, Wednesday morning, I think it must have come out, or maybe late Tuesday night, but I saw it Wednesday morning, the rumors floating around Wanya Morris. The report is that he's suspended for the first 2 games due to academic ineligibility. And first off, all I got to ask is this stemming from some summer classes? Because how are you already academically ineligible when class started like 2 weeks ago? It has to be something related to the summer classes that he might have taken. Not to draw, kind of drag that out too far. I mean, we got to talk about who's going to be filling his spot in. Tyler Guyton, Jacob Sexton. I think Sexton's going to start. Jose, what do you think?
I agree. I think Sexton would get the start just because he was listed as number 2 on that side of the offensive line. But I do think that they're going to bring in Tyler Guyton either after a quarter or after the first half so that he gets a true shot with the number ones, and they would get kind of an even playing field when competing for that right tackle spot. I do think if either of them really excel, I know they're essentially exhibition games, but if they excel at the right tackle position, I think it's going to be really tough for Wanya Morris to come back and get the starting spot for the Nebraska game. Maybe he can earn it back after a couple games of being eligible again. I just don't see him starting during the Nebraska game.
I mean, I agree. I think it obviously sucks for Wanya Morris. I mean, the dude shot himself in the foot in the situation. He was going to be the starter. Really kind of sucks for him. But I mean, it's an awesome opportunity for Jake Sexton and for Tyler Guyton, as you guys are talking about. And I agree. I think those two guys are going to compete. And if they play really well, one of them does. I think it's going to be their job the rest of the season. I don't see any reason to, if they're playing well, to bench them. And then Wanya's going to have to just stay ready and stay loose in case, injury or bad play down the road. But I mean, he kind of played himself here, so it's hard to feel bad for him as much as it sucks for him. If it was like an injury, it's totally different. But I mean, if it's truly academic ineligibility, he did it to himself, and it's hard to feel bad for that. I mean, hopefully he gets it all back and good. And but I mean, it's just if Jake Sexton or Tyler Guyton ends up playing and starting the whole season, it's just going to be a really disappointing career for Wanya as a Sooner.
And I think Wanya has got a little bit of an advantage here because the two guys that are competing to take his spot during his ineligibility are very young, inexperienced offensive linemen. With Guyton, this being his first year as a full-time offensive lineman, and then Sexton being a freshman, there's definitely a shot that he can earn it back, like I said, after a couple of games, once he gets back to being eligible to play. But like Braden said, if either of them look like they can produce equal to or slightly better than Wanya, it's going to be tough for him to get that spot back. And it really will suck because it seems like he had finally gotten to a rhythm with this group and these coaches.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, all Brent Venables and his staff preaches is accountability. And at the end of the day, you have to take care of business in the classroom. And believe it or not, you do come to Oklahoma to go to school. I know some people would rather not play school, like Cardale Jones at Ohio State. But it is what it is, and next man up. And jobs are taken because of, your availability is the best, your best trait. And if you can't be on the field for one reason or another, someone's going to seize the opportunity most of the time. And, I could see it resembling last year at the center position with Congle and Rain kind of going back and forth. There was some inconsistency there with Rain being so young, and Congle was a little more the veteran, and it could be more of just that Guyton and Sexton. It's going to be quarter by quarter. If one's really struggling, they're going to throw Guyton out there to see if he can't settle it down, or maybe Sexton's just going to come in and he's going to be solid and there's going to be no need to rotate. But I could see that being like the center position last year. So anyway, it sucks. It is what it is. And luckily the first two games aren't going to be games that people are going to be flying off the edge and probably hitting Dillon left and right. And also that's the blind side. I know most of the time it's a left tackle, but the right tackle is one of the most important positions in this offense. So, all right, so we're going to move on kind of off of Sooner football only. We're going to start doing this as kind of a weekly segment, or we're going to pick 4 games, as I explained earlier, 4 games for each one of us that we like the best. And then Jose had some information regarding like what we're doing as far as the betting goes and things like that.
Yep. So in the description below, we'll have a link if you guys want to join in on the fun of betting. If you're into gambling, of course, do it responsibly. You can follow the link below with BetUS. They're sponsoring this. If you guys sign up, make a deposit, it'll help the show, and you can follow along. Bet, do your own bets. Follow our bets if you want. If you think they're good, if you think they suck, fade us. One of us may go on a bit of a stinker sometime in the season, so we may be easy money if we suck at this gambling thing. So join us. Tell us what your record is throughout the season, and since Brandon won't be here the entire season, Brum and I may come up with a punishment for whoever has the worst record by regular season's end.
Sounds good. So how about we do this? How about, Brandon, you start? Let's go through one game at a time and just kind of as a rotation of 1 through 4 for each one of us. So your first game, you start off, and we'll go Jose, then me, and we'll just kind of go round and round until we're done.
Yeah. I'm actually going to go to Notre Dame, Ohio State. I don't think the game is going to be all that competitive. I think Ohio State's going to win handedly. I think they're going to win. It's not going to be like a hard-fought game for Ohio State to win, but I don't think they cover the 17. I think Notre Dame's good enough to lose a little less than that, maybe like a 31-17 game or a 31-20, but not that close. Maybe a garbage time score late or something like that. I think Notre Dame covers 17. I'm going to go Notre Dame plus 17.
So I'm going to move to a different game, also a big time game for this Saturday, Oregon, Georgia. I think that Georgia lost a lot of talent. I mean, they had like 4 or 5 first round defensive players drafted last year. I think that that's going to be a big hit, and it is game 1. I think Oregon is going to be good enough, and Dan Lanning will know and how to prepare the offense to not make too many mistakes. Right now, that line is at Oregon favored by 17. Similar to Brandon, I think that Oregon, the favorite, will win, but they won't win by that much. I'm picking Oregon plus 17.
All right. And my first game is going to end up being, it's kind of not a primetime game. It's Houston and UTSA. Currently, Houston is -4 against UTSA. UTSA can score the ball. I like Houston -4 here. They've got a veteran quarterback who's played a lot of games. Dana Holgerson's going to get the team rolling, and I know they're trying to get a lot of momentum going into the Big 12 here pretty soon. They've got a veteran leadership and quarterback, and they can throw the ball around the field, and I think they're going to be able to handle UTSA.
Sweet. I'm going to head on down to the dumbass swamp. Y'all know how I feel about Florida and those institutions. I think they're shit. Florida has Utah this weekend, and Utah is opening as a 3-point favorite, which I think is disrespectful. Florida is mediocre at best. I don't understand the section. The swamp is shit too. I think Utah's going to go in there and beat the brakes off of them. I'm going Utah -3, and I think that one's going to hit relatively easy.
I'm going to agree with 99% of what he just said. Actually, 100% of what Brandon just said. And then I'll add on, it seems disrespectful. It seems disrespectful to Utah, and people are really hyping up a lot of first-year head coaches that aren't named Brent Venables at this moment. Billy Napier, I know he had success at his previous school, but it's Florida, it's the SEC. You're going up against a team that won their conference last year. Utah, I think, is good enough that they'll win by maybe even a touchdown. Like they've got that kind of firepower. They just got to go prove it, hopefully, and I think they can.
All right. My next pick, another small-time game, nothing too crazy, a Big Ten game with Rutgers. I think it's Rutgers, Boston College. Boston College is a 7-point favorite right now. I'm going to take BC. Rutgers is kind of a dumpster fire. Not that BC was that much better, but their quarterback is now healthy. I think BC gets it rolling, and I think they take care of Rutgers pretty handily, probably by 10, 12 points.
Okay, then we're going to go over to the Coliseum. I like this matchup for some reason. I think USC's shit. I think Lincoln Riley's shit. You guys know that. So I think Rice is going in there as a 32.5-point underdog is what it is. I don't think if they're watching this, anybody from Rice, simply rush 3, drop 8. You will give them all sorts of issues all game long. I'm going to take Rice at plus 32.5. I think USC might squeak out with a win there. But I'm going Rice plus 32.5.
That's not one of my picks, but I think that's a good pick just because the USC defense, like people are kind of hyping up USC for their offense and how good it can be, but the defense is still going to be probably really bad at worst, like slightly below average, or at best slightly below average. So Rice should be able to put some points up to not lose by that many points. My next pick is going to be for the Arkansas Cincinnati game. I'm a huge Bearcat, but they've lost a lot of talent to the draft. I think this is kind of a year where they are doing a little bit of rebuilding. I think Arkansas covers the 6.5, wins by a touchdown. They have a decent quarterback. They still have KJ Jefferson, if I am recalling it correctly. They brought in Jaden Hazelwood. That defense added Drew Sanders, the linebacker transfer from Alabama that Oklahoma was actually in the running for. I think the team's good enough to beat a weak Cincinnati team by a touchdown.
No trust in your boy Luke Fickell.
Yeah.
It's rebuilding.
And it just so happens that was my third pick as well. I like Arkansas minus 6.5. As we did, I think it was last week, we did, or maybe it was before then, when the AP top 25 came out, we did our own top 10. I put Arkansas as number 10. I think Arkansas is extremely good. They have a lot of upside. KJ Jefferson, Sam Pittman has them rolling, and I think they're going to play a lot of good football. It's going to be smash mouth. They're going to be able to run over Cincinnati. I'm not saying that Arkansas is like Alabama, but Alabama ran wild on them last year and was just able to just overpower them because they have better and bigger athletes. And Cincinnati's going on the road to Arkansas. That place is going to be a tough arena for them to play in, and that's not something that they're used to week in and week out in the SEC. And I think replacing quarterback and Sauce Gardner and Desmond Ritter, and then like you said, Jose, they bring in Drew Sanders, Jaden Hazelwood, and you still have KJ Jefferson, and then even AJ Green, from Tulsa Union,
UHS baby.
UHS. I think he's going to do well. They've got a good offensive line in Arkansas. They're mean, and they're going to be able to push them around. And I don't think this is very close. I think it's 13 points.
Am I allowed to pick Oklahoma at minus 32 or whatever? So we haven't done that yet. I'm so excited to be there Saturday. The boys are going to be rolling. It's Venable's debut. I think we probably win like 53-0 or something. It's going to be bad. If I'm allowed to lock that, I'm going to take Oklahoma at minus 32, whatever it is. I forget what the exact line is.
I'm looking up the line right now because on ESPN it says minus 30, but I also saw 32 earlier today. So
I have 30. I don't know. I saw 30.
Okay.
All right. Well, then Oklahoma minus 30.
30. I'm going to take the same thing. And I know that we're just doing spreads for this, but I'm also going to take the over in my own personal bet. I think that Oklahoma will be able to score probably at least somewhere in the 40s, and I would hope UTEP could get a garbage time touchdown or field goal to push it. I think the point line right now that I bet was like 52.5, if I remember correctly. So I would take the over on that game. I think Oklahoma's going to handle their business this Saturday.
Yeah. And I think this is maybe what we should do in these 4 picks is we should have to bet the Oklahoma game no matter what. And just some sort of facet of it, because I have Oklahoma minus 30 as well. And I purposely saved this to the very end. Obviously I think Brent Venables wants to come in, make a statement. UTEP lost by 18 to North Texas last week. UTEP's not going to be able to really move the ball efficiently. They might score a touchdown, maybe 10 points at most. I think Brent Venables and the staff and the team are going to try to set the tone, send a message saying that this is a different era and that they're going to be able to get up for this game. This was the hardest part about, the previous coaching staff is they could not get these players motivated to play at UTEP. And half the time that you couldn't even get them motivated to play at Kansas State. But I think this team's going to come out, play with their hair on fire. And if they don't play with their hair on fire, I think they know that there's going to be consequences for them. And they're actually going to be held accountable for poor play on the field and that their job is not safe. And someone will get put in over them. So, and I mean, just overall, I know we talked about this game already and kind of gave it a preview, but I mean, we can talk about this game a little bit. I'm just really excited just to see. I don't care if it's 52-0. I want to see the rotations. I want to see the depth. I think Dillon Gabriel throws a lot of passes. I'm thinking that Jaden Gibson catches a touchdown. I think Eric Gray runs wild, and I think Marcus Major has a pretty solid game. Do you guys have any thoughts before we go on to like a Heisman pick?
So the
Can't
points,
wait.
the spread that I bet real quick was 56.5 over, which I think is still possible. But yeah, I agree. I just want to see how the defense goes this year. That's what I'm looking forward to for UTEP. And if you guys don't care, I'm gonna add a fifth game. You guys don't have to, but I'm gonna take Alabama. I think they're minus.
Was it minus 95?
41.5 versus Utah State. Utah State beat UConn by like 12 points last week.
That's actually that's kind of disrespectful to Connecticut because Connecticut's coming in at
You cut off, bud. We can't hear you anymore.
Yeah,
we can't hear us.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
We can't hear you, but it's not disrespectful. I think Bryce Young and the Alabama team is going to absolutely kill them. It might be the first time ever in college football history that we see a run rule by halftime because it's going to be like 60-0. But yeah, I would pick Alabama there.
Yeah, definitely don't take Utah State in the points. That's that ain't it.
We can hear you again.
There, he's back. And as right before we were recording this, just talking about general college football. I mean, how great! I don't know if you guys were watching, but I know I was. West Virginia Pitt. That's a pretty cool environment, and I'm just glad to have it back. So we'll do Heisman picks. I think as my favorite to win it, I believe CJ Stroud. We've talked about it off the show before. Why Bryce Young? I don't feel like will be able to repeat. He put together a historic season last year. And in order for someone to win the Heisman again, which it's already been done, it's only been done once, you have to put together an even better season. And that means 50 touchdowns and, 5,000 yards and everything else. And that's just really hard to do. And whenever you're having to do that every single game and average like 4 touchdowns a game, 4 or 5 touchdowns a game, it's really, really hard. And you look at Ohio State with CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison Jr., Travion Henderson out of the backfield. They're going to be able to move the ball with ease, throw the ball a ton. And I feel like Ohio State is they're ready to give back, after what Michigan did to them. They're ready for payback, and I think they're motivated. And I think Ohio State, honestly, we're doing national champion picks too. I don't know if we want to do that. I think Ohio State wins it all.
I agree with your CJ Stroud pick. I think Ohio State's going to score a shit ton of points. You mentioned the guys that are on that offense. CJ Stroud's going to put up video game type numbers. I think CJ Stroud wins the Heisman. I don't know about the whole national championship thing. They kind of suck.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with the Heisman pick. It's going to be boring and conform to the group. I think CJ Stroud just is too good to not. I mean, he's a returning quarterback. He's got chemistry. He knows the offense. If he doesn't win it, I think it'd be a disappointment. He should be the guy lifting the Heisman Trophy at the end of the year if he does what he's supposed to do. What do you guys think about dark horses or a guy that people wouldn't expect to be lifting up the trophy?
I'm legitimately going to go with Dillon Gabriel. I know that sounds like really biased and whatever, and I am obviously very biased. I'm a huge homer for you, but I mean, legitimately, this guy can do it. I think reuniting with Jeff Lebby, we have the offense, we have the talent, we have everything that you would need to win that award. I think he'll put up really good numbers. I think this season rides or dies with him, and I think he'll play really, 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 really well. I think we've got. You look at our receiving core with Marvin Mims and Theo Weiss and Jalil Farouk, Drake Stoops, the guys coming out of our backfield. If he can get protected all season long, I think there's no reason why he couldn't at least be in New York by season's end.
Yeah, I don't think that's unreasonable for him to be in New York. And I even think I said that at one point, one show. I could definitely see that. I know what we talked about before we got on the show, and Brandon's not happy with me, but I really think if you look at it objectively, I think Caleb Williams has a legitimate shot.
I think you should take that shirt off and put on a USC shirt, buddy. Since you're a diehard USC sucker offer. USC can fuck off. USC sucks. They will not. Caleb Williams will not win that. I'll bet anything on it. Not even a dark horse.
I'm just saying that I think Caleb Williams has an opportunity to put together an incredible season. They don't have a tough schedule outside of a couple games out of Notre Dame and Utah. And he's going to have Jordan Addison and Mario Williams running around, and Lincoln Riley will have him throw the ball a ton. And it's a weak Pac-12. I just don't see why he wouldn't be able to put up a ton of yards and put together an impressive season.
So real quick to give you guys the odds on those, Caleb Williams is currently plus 600, being the third favorite to win the Heisman. Dillon Gabriel is plus 3,000. Fifth, tied with Will Anderson, linebacker from Alabama. Before we started recording, I was going to stay in the Pac-12 and pick Cam Rising. But after thinking about it, as we've been talking, I'm going to go with Tennessee's quarterback, Hendon Hooker. I'm going to look up his stats again. So last year he was 31-3, touchdown, 31 touchdowns, 3 picks. I think he had slightly under 3,000 yards. Right now he's rolling as we're recording the Tennessee game's going on. He's got almost 300 passing yards in this game and 2 touchdowns. And I think that's before the start of the second half is when I caught a stat line. So I think he's got a pretty good shot at the Heisman this year if he does what he did at, just a little bit better. Literally, if he can get another 1,000 yards, and I know it's not an easy task, but if he can get another 1,000 yards and a few more touchdowns, he should at least be in New York and in the race to get that trophy.
If you're throwing out crazy ideas, I mean, could Bijan Robinson be up there? I don't know. I mean, I know
we need to buy Brum a USC and a Texas shirt.
It's a dark horse for a reason. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba, could he do it? Could he be another receiver that takes it from his quarterback?
I mean, if he gets rolling with CJ Stroud, this is the only thing I could see what would play against Jackson Smith and Jigba, because as CJ Stroud throws tons of touchdowns to him, it's like when Baker and D.D. Westbrook were going together. Votes are split, and when one has a good game, typically the other one has a good game, and it's tough to separate. So, but I think Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to put together a ridiculous season, and if he can continue what he did in the bowl game. So, anyway, I know I'll probably catch some flack for some of these picks and some of the players I brought up, but it is what it is. And I mean, you just have to look at it objectively. And I think Oklahoma wins more games than USC. It's just not to say that an individual player can't put together.
Is that going to hurt you if it happens?
What?
If Oklahoma wins more than your boys down there in Southern Cal?
Not my boys. Not my boys at all.
Your favorite program with your favorite head coach?
No, I don't think so. So
it's just disgusting.
There's nothing disgusting whenever you look at it objectively.
Fucking disgusting. Take a shower.
Anyway, so I don't know. Sometimes you have to put your biases aside. You have to look at it objectively.
Not for USC, you don't, Daddy. Not for USC, you don't.
I know you're probably the most opinionated one on this podcast.
I promise to never say a nice thing about USC ever, and anytime you guys do, I will fire away all day long because I can't stand them. While you're becoming a diehard.
All right.
It just grosses me out, bud. Hurts me.
Yeah. Look at sports objectively sometimes.
Yeah. So
they suck objectively.
Good analysis. Anyway, so all right, so we made it this far. We're finished up with our show. Brandon, do you have an individual challenge for the people?
Yeah, well, first of all, everybody just roast the shit out of Brumbaugh for being a diehard USC fan. Put that in the comments because that's gross. I think you guys will think it's gross too. And then just put your Heisman winner. So it's a 2-part individual challenge. Roast Brumbaugh's dumbass for liking USC and comment your Heisman winner.
For the record, I do not like USC, but you're asking for dark horses, and I guess Caleb Williams isn't quite so much a dark horse, but he's definitely not a favorite. Anyway, so remember tomorrow, Saturday, September 3rd, we're going to be going live at 9 a.m. Central. So be sure to turn on that notification bell so you get a push notification whenever we go live. We're going to be talking Oklahoma football. We're going to be talking Big 12 football, SEC, general college football, kind of do a morning pregame show and get some questions.
You doing any USC talk?
I mean, we probably will. We'll bring in some, our USC fans. We'll let them ask some questions, and we'll talk some USC football too. So, but anyway, made it this far. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, be sure to follow the channel on there. Leave us a review; it helps us out a lot. And we will see you guys tomorrow, Saturday at 9 a.m. Central.